It was autumn. The leaves were turning colors, gold, rust, and deep red. Subconsciously, I don't think we wanted summer to end. When I say we, I mean just a group of scraggly, nature-loving kids, barely young adults dressed in a combination of punk, metal, and hippie-style attire. It was Max, Mike, Brandon, Jason, and yours truly, Donnell. We decided it was a great day to take a road trip to the coast, just like we had done for most of the summer. I was the only girl, a tom girl though, not a girly girl. Most importantly, I was the only one with a car, a 1987 dark red Honda Civic. Except for Mike, he had a blue Enduro motorcycle. We started gathering our camping gear. A couple of dark blue tents, a royal blue tarp, a couple of blue sleeping bags lined with plaid flannel, a red one, an orange one, and a Kelly green mummy bag stuffed with goose down. That was mine. We grabbed a can opener for our food, a few cans of chili, some granola, a couple jugs of water, and a bag of oregano. We crammed a couple of pieces of firewood into the trunk along with all the camping gear and got on the road. The sky was cloudy, with little drops of rain every now and then, but not enough to stop us. Our destination was around 3 or 4 hours away from our little hick town of Red Bluff. The town was filled with a bunch of narrow-minded cowboys in their cowboy costumes made up of Wranglers, oversized belt buckles, dented felt cowboy hats, starched plaid shirts, and mouths full of Copenhagen, like cows chewing cud. We longed to escape the town and begin our journey down the yellow brick road that led to a magical land of giant redwood trees, delicately woven bright green ferns dripping with dew, and happy little banana slugs sharing their homes with us on the padded trails of humus underneath the redwoods. It wasn't long before we found out that 5 people and all the camping gear was a little too much for the little Honda Civic. Tension started to build. That's when Mike suggested we turn around and get his motorcycle, which would give us more room in the car. He didn't mind the rain, he said. A couple hours later, we were back on the road. The windshield wipers were tapping away to the music on the tape deck. A few more hours of twisting, winding roads along the Trinity River, over mountainous terrain, and we made it to the Highway 101 north sign. A few more miles north, and we were finally at our destination, Patrick's Point State Park. We sighed with relief until we noticed the sign. The lonely, wet, wooden sign that crumbled our hearts into a million pieces. No vacancy. What were we to do now? Daylight was burning and a new plan had to happen fast. We headed further north. Mike went first and was on the lookout for a good place for us to pull over. We finally found a small, wet dirt turnout with just enough room to fit the little red car and the buzzing blue motorcycle for the night. We were somewhere between the highway and the ocean on a frontage road. We had no idea where, really, but we had to get moving. Each of us grabbed as much of the essentials as possible so we'd only need to make one trip. We headed down the tree-covered slope toward the ocean. We couldn't see it, but we knew it was there. Branches to the left, right, above, below, scraping and scratching us as we trekked down and wondered if we would even find a camping spot as the trail became less and less of a trail. We crashed through the foliage, the mist grew thicker, the sound of the surf was getting louder. Finally, we made it to the beach. we stumbled upon our very own private beach. Not a soul in sight. The sand was mixed with small rocks and pebbles. The south end had a nice big outcropping of rocks that looked like it would help protect us from the wind and mist that was getting thicker and thicker by the minute. We dumped the heavy gear on the ground to rest our arms and then started getting our camp together. We were a little worried about the dome tent getting rain inside, so in hopes to keep it dry, we took the tarp and created an awning by tying one side to the top of the tent and one of the corners to the rocks and the other corner to a long piece of driftwood to prop it up. By that time, we were really hungry, so we grabbed the cans of chili, and normally we would have made a campfire to heat things up, but all the wood we could see was wet. It was almost dark, and the wind was getting stronger. Unfortunately, fire was not very realistic at this point. It was time to huddle in our tents, gulp down some cold chili, and crawl into our sleeping bags for the night. The wind became stronger and stronger, smacking the tents harder as the night went on. It wasn't long before the tarp started flapping loosely, only attached by one cord. We grabbed it and stuffed it inside the dome tent before it blew away completely. Giant waves churned and crashed around us. The only sounds we could hear were the waves, the wind, the rain, and ourselves cussing and laughing and screaming hysterically. It was impossible to sleep. It wasn't long before both tents collapsed completely into our bodies from the strength of the wind. They were wet, we were wet and cold. What were we going to do? What else could we use to keep the water off us as best as possible to protect us from the wind for the rest of the night? The tarp. We decided to use the tarp. We all crawled underneath. We were all five staring at each other by the glow of a flashlight. Our feet were out toward the edge of the tarp, helping hold it down along with the wet sand to keep the wind from ripping it away from us. We collectively made a starfish shape. The tarp saved us from getting hypothermia. It didn't seem possible, but the rain pounded harder. The ocean became angrier. We must have been in the middle of a hurricane. Sand was in our mouths, grinding between our teeth, in our eyes, clothes. The night lasted forever. We just wanted to be home. It felt like a small miracle at the time, but it started to get light outside. We lived to see the morning. We overcame the challenges to endure the night, but the rain didn't let up. We didn't care. What I remember most about that moment is the relative silence of the morning and our grim determination to get the hell off that beach. We silently and methodically gathered all the gear under our arms and headed up the hill that we came down the day before, all the while thinking of the warm, dry car equipped with the heater that waited for us. The climb up the hill was much harder now with the torrents of rain. The trail had become a mini stream bed with an occasional waterfall. Mike had the privilege of carrying that sopping wet tarp up that Rubicon of a hill. We would take 3 steps forward and slide 2 steps backward, slipping in the slimy mud. Once we were in the car, the awkward silence ensued. You could cut it with a knife. Mike's buzzing motorcycle engine broke the silence now and then. We made it a few miles down the road near civilization, roughly 15 minutes into the trip, just wanting to be home. We were exhausted, crusty, tired, grumpy, dirty, sandy, stinky, with messy, knotted hair. That's when a voice came from the back seat. "What do you say we freshen up and grab a bite to eat?" Apparently, that sounded too crazy after going through hell for 12 or so hours. As good as real food and coffee sounded, The general consensus was that we could freshen up and eat at home. Once we made that long trek back over the mountains and back to our warm apartment, we all took turns taking hot showers. We then made up a batch of our favorite top ramen with chicken flavor, then raspberry turmoilers, warmed in the oven for dessert. I think the take-home message here is that perseverance can get you through a storm of a night to see the light of the next day, and that things don't always go as planned and might not seem funny at the time. Looking back, 30 or so years later, parts of this adventure are definitely worth laughing at and learning that we should all lighten up. Freshening up and grabbing a bite to eat is more a state of mind than anything. What do you say we freshen up and grab a bite to eat?
Showers wash all my cares away. I wake up to a sunny day, 'cause I love a rainy night. Yeah, I love a rainy night. Well, I love a rainy night. Well, I love a rainy night. Well, it makes me high. Ooh, I love a rainy night. You know I do. Yeah, yeah, I love a rainy night.